A widow was beaten daily, until one man changed her fate forever. In the small farming town of Willow Creek, everyone knew Sarah Miller, though not for reasons she ever wanted. She was known as the widow. Sarah was 29 when her husband, Daniel, died in a logging accident. One moment he was promising to bring home flour for bread, the next, a falling tree crushed him beneath its weight. The company paid a small settlement, barely enough to cover the funeral, and then forgot her name. But the town didn't. A widow with no land, no savings, and 2 young children was an easy target. Sarah lived in a decaying wooden house on borrowed land with her daughters, Lily, 8, and Rose, 5. Each morning before sunrise, she walked miles to find work, scrubbing floors, washing clothes, feeding animals, harvesting crops. Whatever she earned barely kept her children fed. But hunger wasn't her greatest problem. Cruelty was. The worst came from Mr. Halvorson, a wealthy landowner who controlled much of Willow Creek's farmland. Sarah worked on his property most days because she had no choice. He shouted when she worked too slowly. He slapped her when she made mistakes. And when she tried to protest, he reminded her of one thing. Who do you think will believe a widow like you? The bruises became routine. Sarah learned how to hide them beneath long sleeves and silence. She learned to lower her eyes, to apologize even when she wasn't wrong, and to swallow humiliation for the sake of her children. The townspeople saw it all. They saw her limp home. They heard her cries through thin walls. They noticed the fear in her eyes. And they did nothing. Life is hard, they said. She should be grateful for work, they whispered. Sarah stopped expecting help. She focused on survival. One late afternoon, as rain soaked the dirt roads, Sarah was struggling to lift a sack of grain at Halvorson's farm when her strength finally failed. The bag split open, spilling grain into the mud. Halvorson's face twisted with rage. Useless. Worthless. Good-for-nothing widow. His hand struck her across the face so hard she fell. That was when a horse stopped nearby. A tall man dismounted slowly, his boots firm against the ground. Thomas Reed. Everyone in Willow Creek knew his name. He owned the largest ranch in the county, miles of land, hundreds of cattle, and a reputation for fairness that bordered on legend. He rarely involved himself in village matters, but when he spoke, people listened. Thomas had seen enough. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply looked at Halvorson and said, "Touch her again, and you'll answer to me." Halvorson laughed nervously, pretending it was nothing. But Sarah noticed something important. For the first time in years, someone had stood between her and pain. Thomas didn't offer Sarah money that day. He didn't promise miracles. Instead, he said something unexpected. "If you're willing, there's work at my ranch. Safe work." Sarah hesitated. Offers often came with hidden costs. But she accepted. Life at Thomas Reed's ranch was different. No shouting. No raised hands. No fear. Sarah worked in the kitchen at first, then in the supply office. Thomas noticed how quickly she learned. How carefully she counted. How she treated workers with quiet respect. He asked about her children. He made sure they had food. He never crossed a line. And slowly, painfully slowly, Sarah began to feel human again. But Willow Creek didn't change. Rumors spread. She's after his money. A widow like her knows tricks. It won't last. Sarah ignored them. She had learned how. 6 months later, Thomas made a decision that shocked the entire town. He asked Sarah to marry him. Not in a grand gesture. Not with promises of love. He said, "I want to protect you, and your children. And I need someone I trust by my side." Sarah was honest. "You don't love me." Thomas nodded. Not yet. But I respect you. Respect felt safer than love. So she said yes. The marriage changed everything. No one dared raise a hand against Sarah again. Halvorsen avoided her gaze. The whispers turned into forced smiles. The town watched closely, waiting for her to fail. But Sarah didn't fail. She rose. Thomas began involving her in ranch decisions. Hiring. Payments. Disputes. Sarah discovered she had a talent for leadership, born from years of endurance and understanding hardship. Workers trusted her. She raised wages. She improved living conditions. She created work for widows and struggling families. For the first time, Willow Creek felt fair. Then came the truth. Thomas had been sick for years. A heart condition he never spoke about. I knew my time was limited, he told her one evening. I didn't want my ranch falling into cruel hands. He looked at her gently. I chose you because you know suffering, and you never became cruel. Sarah finally understood. The marriage wasn't a rescue. It was a responsibility. When Thomas passed away a year later, the town expected chaos. Instead, they got Mrs. Sarah Reed. Strong. Calm. Unbreakable. She ran the ranch with wisdom and compassion. She refused bribes. She stood against abuse. She remembered every bruise she once carried, and made sure no one else had to carry the same. Halvorsen lost his land after repeated violations. No violence. No revenge. Just justice. Years later, children in Willow Creek grew up hearing Sarah's name spoken with respect. Not as the widow, but as the woman who endured, survived, and changed everything. And Sarah, standing on the porch of her home, watching her daughters laugh freely, finally believed something she once thought impossible. Her fate had been changed, not by luck, not by marriage, but by the moment someone saw her pain and chose not to look away.